Hi everyone, and welcome to week 7 of the Summer Camp Sew Along, hosted by Pat Sloan at her website ilovetomakequilts.com. This week we have a theme of camp songs, and as you would be aware if you watch the Block Wednesday videos, I always have an earworm of a camp song to provide on any given day. This week's block has many different parts and pieces, but it goes together easily. Please don't be afraid of the half-an-hour timestamp of this video. So why don't you jump over to Pat's website, ilovetomakequilts.com, download this week's block pattern, come back here, and we'll show you how to do it. Okay, you should have all your fabrics cut out as per the cutting directions on this week's pattern, and you should in fact have 12 light squares, another 4 light squares but a different type of light. You will need 20 medium squares that are much smaller and 4 dark squares that are also smaller. Now both of the smaller squares will be used for sew and flips. So yes, there is 24 sew and flips in this block, but it looks fantastic. What I am going to do is show you the traditional method with a couple of these. And then I'm going to use another technique that you may be interested in, which is what I call the oversized technique. And I'll explain that when we get to it. I find it gives the best accuracy, so if you're okay with wasting a bit of fabric, that's fine, but I also get good accuracy with the traditional method, so either or. But because there is so many this time, I'm going to be using the oversized method. So for the traditional method, we need to draw a line from corner to corner in one direction on all 20 squares. If you're doing all 20 that way, I'm only doing 2, so I will do that now. And also I'm only going to do 1 dark square for 1 sew and flip. I need a different marking tool for this one, so I have my yellow quilter's pencil. You can use any colored pencil, but the leads in those can tend to be a bit hard. An actual quilter's pencil or a chalk pencil will have a softer lead. Now this block is made up of 3 sections, so you'll be making 4 unit A's, 8 unit C's and 4 unit B's. So in that we take 4 of the larger light squares. 3, 4. They're going to get a sew and flip on opposing corners. So we'll sit this, that's 1, 2, 3. Okay, now to use these triangles for the oversized method, we just need 1 for each size. So you can tell I started with a slightly larger square, and for each square you get 2, whereas in this method you need 2 and you have this, so the waste is either the same or negligible. So we're doing 1 in the traditional method of these 4, so I need 6 corners for that one, and I'll set that here. Unit B is the center, so we use the 4 secondary light squares that we have, and it gets 1 dark sew and flip and 1 medium sew and flip on the opposing corner. So doing 1 traditionally, and then we need 3 for the oversize and 4 medium for the other side of that. That is unit B. And for unit C, we take the last remaining 8 of our primary light and they get one sew and flip just on one corner. So our 8 oversized corners there. Let's start with unit A, which the first one, I'm going to do the traditional method. So I'll pin the squares with the drawn line on, matching the corners here. It's just to hold that fabric while we go to the machine. Rotate, place the other one. Now with these, as per previous instructions, we're going to sew just to the right of our drawn line, and that leaves enough space for the thread take up when we turn it back for all corners to match again, and we'll come to that again later. For the oversized method, you need to have either Doug Lico's corner clipper or the folded corner clipper from Creative Grids. And what we need to do here is take our measurement for what would have been the small squares in the traditional method, and we trim the corner off. We trim the corner off the block as if we were doing the normal folded corner clipper method, but only on the base block. Then we grab our oversized corner and we loosely line that up. Because it is oversized, as you can see, you don't have to be too fussy with your overhang, but obviously don't do it all the way down like this. Try and center it as best you can. You can fold both pieces to get a crease to line up if you like, but I just eyeball it because there is so much excess. Generally secure that with 2 pins because we are working with a bias. And I will pin both of these as well. Okay, so that's the traditional and the oversized method, and we'll come back to the differences there, and we're going to make 4 unit A's. So I'll just get that ready to sew. Block B, opposing corners, dark and light, and block C, the 8 corners. I'm going to get them all ready off camera and meet you back at the sewing machine when I'm ready to sew. So we're going to sew the traditional method first, and you'll see here, as I've instructed before, we're just going to sew 1 thread width to the right of the drawn line. And now we sew our oversized ones with the traditional 1/4 inch seam. Okay, so we have everything sewn together and we're ready to press. So here are the 4 A units, the 4 B units, and the 8 C units. So we'll start with the A, unit A. This was using the traditional method. So what we do here is fold this back and make sure that all of the edges are covered. Flip it over, check on the back, everything's fine. We cut this piece away. I'll just quickly do that, leaving 1/4 of an inch, and these can just be pressed out. And on all the other units where we've got the oversized triangle, we'll just press the same. With the B units, all of the medium triangles can just be pressed out, but the dark ones, we want to press 2 in and 2 out, so that when we put the center together, everything will nest. So these 2 will press out, and on these 2, after we press the medium out, we'll sit this one upside down and we'll press the opposite direction. The unit C's, we need to do the same thing. So we're going to press 4 out and 4 in. Now we'll head to the cutting mat and we will trim these up. Okay, so here we are at the cutting mat, and as you can see, we don't really have anything closely resembling a square at all. I'm going to start with the center units, which are unit B, which are the ones with 1 dark and 1 medium. Just grab any square ruler, line it up on 2 edges as best you can, and trim. Rotate the square and do the same thing. Now, they may have distorted a little in the pressing process, but this should bring them back to just about square. So I'll go ahead and do all of these, and then we'll put those together. Those are all done. So when we look at the back, put the block upside down. All of the dark go into the middle, and you want the ones where you had the different pressing on opposite sides. And we are going to make a 4 patch. So we'll sew the top 2, the bottom 2, and then that seam here. And I'll do that now. Just showing you that tip from a few weeks ago. We want these to nest, and I want it to stay nice and flat. So we put the pin in under the top 2 from the seam allowance, pin down through the bottom and back up, and that just holds it a little bit flatter and it's nicer. Take the pin out as you get to it at the sewing machine, and I'll do the same with these bottom 2. It just helps hold that seam tight. So again, in between, under the seam allowance, down and through. And I will sew these and be right back. Okay, so we have those done now. What I'm actually going to do is press this seam open. You can press it to just one side, but I just find it easier now to do these ones open, and the same on the other one. And there we go, that's pressed open now, and you'll see that we will get these two to lock as well. This middle seam is not as important because it is all the same color fabric, but line it up the best you can, and I'm going to do that now. If you're wondering why this time I'm not doing the other pinning technique that I did before, it's because I'm going to be coming down this way, and so the machine will naturally press these together to lock. Next up, we'll make our C units, which are the ones that will go on either side here, and they are the only other ones that require construction. The A units we just need to trim. So here are all 8 Unit C's. I'll need to trim them all up, and then I'll come back to you. Okay, with that all done, we need to pair one of each direction. So that's that, that, and that. Now these units are very simple. We're simply putting them together on one edge to create a tiny peak here, and because we had the preparation without pressing, they will just go together quite nicely. And I'll pin them all, get them done. And these as well, I will press open. Okay, those 4 are now done. And as you can see, I did press open, but you can press whichever way you like. This is just my preference. I'll now trim the last remaining Unit A's, the 4 Unit A's, and we'll get to construction. pop the block diagram up in the corner, but basically we have this. With a mirror image of the top row on the bottom. I just don't have enough space. So for sewing it together, I'm gonna stack it up as I usually do. And now we are just putting together a 9 patch. For sewing the top and bottom rows, there is no trick here. When we get to the middle row and sewing the top and the bottom on, there'll be a little trick I can show you here. I generally just do what I call sew and hope, and it always works out. But I will show you a trick so that you can make sure that they're going to line up for a seamless center. That's the top and the bottom done now. And I am going to press these in towards the center too. Now, to attach these two here, we need an overlap of about 1/4 of an inch. If you just place it, I'll do one with my technique and one with how I normally do it, and we'll see. So what we need to gauge is where about 1/4 of an inch is in from that edge. So in this case, I'm just going to mark that. And that's roughly there. And on this piece as well. And now what you can do is what they call a hang pin. So you put this on that seam at that mark, then you place it through to the same mark on the other side. Get your pieces lined up. Now you make sure that that pin is perpendicular, so it's going straight up and down. I just place one pin either side. And pull that pin out. And now, as long as you hit that mark, or just to the outside of it, when you're sewing this seam, you should have a perfect point. This side, I'm just going to leave and do by feel, but I'll show you again on the other side that hang pin technique, and I'm just lining up my centers. Okay. I'll put the pink pin on this here so that you know that this is my sew and hope side. And let's go. I'll leave that part in unedited so that you know I didn't change it. Now you'll see here, just to the outside of our mark, I'm going to take all of these pins out. We have pretty much a perfect crossover there. And on the side where I sewed and hoped, I have the same. To show you again though, on the opposite side, because we are going to have to do this on these two sides as well. You can mark it, or you can gauge where the 1/4 inch is. I'll mark it. One side on the front, the other one on the reverse. Pin in through the mark, in through the other mark, hang the pin, which is where it gets its name. Make sure it's going perpendicular, so you're not pulling it this way, you're not going this way, it's not up, it's not down, it is straight through. When you're happy, one pin there, one pin here, pull that one out. I'll again use that to mark my side, and I'll sew and hope over here. Make sure these centers, and off we go. Oh, I nearly pulled my pin out. Okay, let's check that again. There's my mark, I'm just on the outside of it. Pretty much perfect. I am actually on these ones, which you can't even see, the tiniest bit to the left. But I'm not going to worry about that, because once it's bunched up with the quilting and everything, that's going to be fine. Now, we press these ones towards the outside pieces. And now we will attach the top and the bottom. You have these seams to mark up, and with the way that we've pressed, they will automatically nest. These, the center one you line up, and these you can do it either with the hang pin or my sew and hope method. And while I have your attention, if anyone can tell me how to stop getting this fabric from fraying, I'd be greatly appreciative. I'll just do the top and bottom and come back to you. Okay, now you saw that I didn't pin these intersections. Let's have a look. Look at that. Man, could do better there. Corners are fine. Other side. Yep. Press those two out, and this week's block is done. Okay folks, that's it for another week. Hopefully you survived the half an hour. If you did make it to the end of the video, why don't you click subscribe if you haven't done so already, leave me a like, and maybe perhaps leave a comment down below about what you found the most helpful. I will see you all again next week.